Sure.
Okay, welcome back, everyone, from your lunch break. If I can just bring the room to order and ask everyone to lower your voice so I can hear myself as I call the meeting back. We are now moving on to items that are timed for 1:30. I recognize that there are some members of council who would like to address and deal with perhaps some items that they have on hold. But I'd like to perhaps introduce new items. Let's lengthen our agenda only to shrink it again. Can I get a motion to introduce new items number 89 and 90? Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. Those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. I recognize there's also a requests for us to reconsider two items, and I thought what we can do is deal with those first. And the first one is item number 42, and that was held by Councillor McConnell. Actually, it was dealt with by Councillor McConnell. We've all voted on it, but there is now a motion for us to reopen and reconsider. Is that correct, Councillor?
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to put the expanded notification clause in.
Okay.
I was in a hurry.
Okay. So there is a motion from Councillor McConnell for us to open and reconsider the item. All those in favor for reopening? Any opposed? Seeing none. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Madam Chair, I'd move the adoption of staff recommendations with the expanded notification.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's adopted. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And I know that we also have item number 37, which we dispense with rather quickly, but those members of those registered speakers who are now here, what I'd like to do is actually just address that first, and then we'll go right into items time for 1:30.
So I'd like to move that we reopen it to allow for the deputations.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Please come forward. And I would welcome speakers Christian Cameron and Colin McKenzie.
If I could, Madam Chair, on a point of, well, just personal interest, are there members of the public here for TE 24.26? This is the flankage patio at 162 Ossington Avenue. No, I'm just trying to clear things up in advance, but thank you.
Great. Okay. You have 5 minutes. There's a clock on your left-hand side.
Not formally, but I'm a former chair of the board, and joining me is Pia Baumann, the founder and artistic director of the school. We understand that this meeting is not about approval of this proposal at 6 Noble Street, but we felt it be useful to address some issues that we feel were missed in the initial planning report that was before you. And those are largely around the nature of the school and its role in this new development. The Pia Baumann School has been a staple in Parkdale for the last 37 years. It's the only registered charity as a ballet school except for the National Ballet School. On Jarvis, we have more than 300 students, an extensive bursary program, and as I say, we're a fixture in the community. We've been a tenant at 6 Noble for the last getting on for 14 years. And in that time, we moved from down the street on Queen Street, but we're one of the central pillars of the community. And we always thought that when the building was sold that we were doomed, but by great good fortune, the proponent in this application, Dermot Sweeney, and his company have decided that they are going to give us the first 2 floors of any new development at a very favorable rate to maintain the school that is, as I say, an important part of the community. I think it's a little puzzling that the report does not indicate the nature of our tenancy and, in fact, the nature of our school. I'll let Pia go into that in more detail, but I would just want to add that Dermot is one of the city's most innovative architects, one of the most forward-thinking. He's responsible for the Telus Place, for 134 Peter Street, one of the most successful downtown redevelopments in recent memory. And his proposal is going to be impeccably green, but most important to us is going to maintain us in the space where we've been for the last 13 years. I won't waste more of your time. I will hand it over to Pia, who has a few points to make.
Is this working?
Yep.
Thank you. So my name is Pia Baumann. I'm the founder, artistic director of Pia Baumann School for Ballet and Creative Movement, a school that I founded in 1997 and felt it was absolutely necessary to move or to change into a charitable not-for-profit organization. When I discovered that as an individual and a for-profit school in the beginning years, I was supporting already from day one many students who needed support. So we became not-for-profit in 86, 87. We started in Parkdale at the Queen Street Beatty Avenue intersection, which at that point was a desperately miserable intersection where drugs, alcohol, and prostitution were rampant. I made a decision to stay, not to move, because just by the fact what Parkdale showed as a face at that point necessitated for me the importance of a dance school, an institution of the arts that develops minds and bodies and souls of children was crucial. When we left after 25 years, the Queen Street Beatty Avenue corner, that area had dramatically changed. Economically, businesses had done better. And when we walked with police escort, the whole school, costumes, parents, children, to Six Noble, we had police escort and all the stores came out to wave us goodbye and say, we will so miss you and we wish you good luck. So we moved into Six Noble, which was another rather poorly cornered space, and we changed it as well. Our bursary is an important program. Our program that extends to the artists in the community who come during the day. Our space is used basically from 9 till 9. During the day, it is artists, dancers, actors, indigenous groups, Red Sky, Santi, Smith. They come and develop their work here. Their impression of their creative activity imprints itself on the kids that attend the school in the after-school hours. Our school is a safe place. Our school is important.
Your final thought, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe there are questions. Councillor Perks?
Yeah, thank you. Colin, you said in your deputation that Mr. Sweeney had agreed that the ballet school could remain at Six Noble. Did I understand that right? So he signed an agreement with you to that effect?
It was being drafted, but it is. Sorry, he is committed to produce it. It's a matter of weeks.
In a matter of weeks. Yeah. And are there conditions attached to it?
There's some thought that the ownership might be the Parkdale Land Trust, might be the holder of it, but the intent is for the ballet school to remain in perpetuity.
Right, and is that conditional on the city approving the new building, or is it just...
It is conditional on the building,
okay.
As agreed with by you folks, basically.
So if the city refuses what city staff have described here as overdevelopment on this site, then he's made you no offer in that instance?
It depends where it ends up, right? I think we all recognize that 14 stories is unlikely to be the outcome. How many fewer is a matter of discussion between the developer and the city, and the threshold that changes the nature of the project, which is conceived as a rental building, may have to change depending on the economics.
Right. This is very important for me to understand.
Yep.
So in the event that he makes an application and it's refused, you have no surety from him at all?
We have no surety at all, and nor does he, actually.
Well, I mean, the building will just exist.
The building would exist, but he, I mean, I hesitate to speak for him, but the economics of the 6-story condo building probably work. I don't think he'd be interested in actually building it, but would sell the land to someone who would.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members with questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak? Seeing none. Members who have questions for staff? Members to speak. Councillor Perks.
So this is a preliminary report. Normally, we don't get into much detail in a preliminary report, but the preliminary report makes a couple of facts very clear. First of all, this is in the special policy area, which is that old former City of Toronto industrial residential zoning, employment residential zoning. Under City of Toronto policies, we're allowed to consider uses like this one, but the caveat is that the development needs to be respectful of the local context. The tallest nearby building is 5.5 stories. It's 5 stories above and one of those half-story below and above. Okay, the proposal though is for 14, so it's more than twice what the planning context is. The ballet studio is currently located at this location. It's a fantastic contributor to the community. Mr. Sweeney's firm has bought the property based on a speculative venture that they could completely change the zoning in the area. So Mr. Sweeney has essentially held a gun to the community's head and said, we have to blow out what constitutes good development in this type of zone. And remember, if we blow it out here, that's something that everyone who owns property in this type of special policy area will take note of. So there are very big implications for development in an area that has a lot of properties throughout the City of Toronto. He's trying to make this about trying to make the city responsible as to whether or not the ballet school stays, when in fact he, as the current property owner, has sole ability. It's not a lease with the city. We're not the landlord. We don't make a decision who the tenants are. It's Mr. Sweeney's responsibility. And as a speculator, to try to hold the gun to the community's head and to the city's head, well, I'm not impressed. In any event, for anyone who's interested, this will come to a public meeting on Thursday in Parkdale, and I look very much forward to the debate. And with that, I'll move the staff recommendation to hold the community meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to speak? No? Seeing none, the motion is before us. All those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? That has been adopted. Thank you. We are now moving on to a timed item for 1:30. TE 24.21, application for fence exemption 116 Barton Avenue. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak to that item? No, seeing none. Are there any members who have questions of staff? Seeing none. Members to speak. Councillor Cressy?
Sorry, is this 24.21?
That is correct.
I'm going to move to deny the fence exemption.
Any questions of the mover? No? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to deny the application? Indicate your support. Any opposed? Okay. That has been adopted. TE 24.22, application for fence exemption 194 Montclair Avenue. We do have registered speakers. David Eckler.
Are there any others?
I don't know. Yes, okay.
Applicant here? Oh, great, okay.
Yeah, if we can have, David, if you can come to the front of the room, just position yourself before a microphone. I will start your clock shortly. You've got 5 minutes. The clock is on your left-hand side. And those other members of the public who are interested in speaking to this item, if you can just register with Nahum over there, he will then have you properly register on the list, and I can call you when it's time. Okay, you've got 5 minutes. Please proceed.
I'll just be very short. My dining room is right on the other side of this fence here, and it's very tall. I'm not sure. It says 7 feet. I'm not sure if they're measuring from my side or their side. But when I look out my window, all I see is a fence down the left-hand side of my property. I'm not asking for any special exemptions. I'm just that if they want a fence, let it be 4 feet tall and or whatever city bylaw is appropriate. Thank you.
I think we're going to have to. Are there any questions? Hold on. Are there any questions of our speaker? No? Okay, thank you very much. We do have another speaker. I'm sorry I don't have you on my list, but I know you're here, so please proceed. Position yourself in front of a microphone, and I will start your clock at 5 minutes. If you can just start with the introduction of your name.
Elizabeth Tallman.
Yes, thank you.
At 194 Montclair. We extended an existing fence, kept it exactly in line and in aesthetic, identically to how it looks. It's entirely on our property. We checked the survey. From an aesthetic point of view, it blocks my neighbor's 3 air conditioning units that I look out as soon as I open my door and look out my window, in addition to his composter, in addition to protecting the safety of my children from their downspout, which drains directly onto our driveway and causes ice patches, from their garden that grows onto our driveway and scratches my son when he rides by on his bicycle, and has fallen off on his bicycle to avoid such scratches. It blocks no oncoming traffic. It is more than 18 feet up from the sidewalk. We are the first driveway on the street. It doesn't block anybody's sight lines. The only thing it blocks is my neighbor's view of my driveway. It also blocks a lot of the noise and traffic that we have to see from Bathurst as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members who have questions for our speaker? No? Okay. Are there any other members of the public who are interested in speaking to this item? Seeing none, we'll bring this inside. Members with questions of staff? Councillor Mihevc?
Yes, who am I speaking with? Joe. Okay, thank you, Joe. The first applicant mentioned that the bylaw is 4 feet. I thought it was 2 meters.
It's 4 feet when the fence is beyond the front wall of the house in the front yard.
I see.
1.2 meters.
1.2 meters, I see. So is it possible, and as I understand it, the new part of the fence really is the part that is beyond the first wall of the front wall of the property?
Correct.
Is that the piece for which the application is being asked?
Correct.
Not the rest of the fence? The rest of the fence is more or less in compliance?
Correct.
Okay, so if we were to refuse this application, they would have to bring that part down to basically 1.2 meters.
Correct.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions for staff? Okay, members to speak. Councillor Mihevc?
You know, I absolutely hate these issues because it's asking us to make choices when really it is always better when neighbors make arrangements between themselves on these kinds of issues. Given that there is not an agreement, I do not think I can in conscience support the application. If there was agreement, then of course that's a different kind of situation. But given that there is no agreement, then I think the offending party needs to bring it down to make it into compliance. So I'm moving number 1, which is refuse the request for fence exemption, and encourage the 2 property owners to, if they find a spirit or a will to do it, to find a different kind of compromise that may be more mutually beneficial, but it is really between them to sort that out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Any other members who'd like to speak? No, we have the motion before us from Councillor Mihevik. All those in favor?
They need to vote because there's not quorum.
Can I get, do you want to move your chairs?
Yeah, as long as they're voting.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, that has been adopted. Thank you very much. I recognize that Councillor Matlow would like to reopen an item. It's item number 37. The address is 6 Noble. Motion to reopen this, to consider this item. Okay.
Thank you. For the first time ever, I'd like to declare an interest because it just occurred to me as we were addressing that item that my sister just bought her first home, a condo at the Brock Lofts, which is just 2 blocks away from 6 Noble. So I need to, out of abundance of caution, declare an interest due to that reason. And I'm just going to step out for a moment as you consider the item again.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. What I would like to do is perhaps...
1, 2, 3, 4.
We do. Perhaps what we can do is have a recorded vote so that we can clearly demonstrate that Councillor Matlow is not in the room as we consider the item. So, Councillor Perks, would you like to move the item again?
Yes, I will.
Okay, all those in favor? Recorded vote. Councillor Mihevik, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Fragedakis, Layton, Councillor Perks, Councillor McConnell, Councillor McMahon. Thank you very much. Did you want 2 votes? Okay. Thank you. That's been adopted for the 3rd time. That was wonderful. We are now on TE 24.23, application for fence exemption, 38A Thelma Avenue. And we do have speakers here, Dr. Nancy Schechter, as well as Steve Mack and Mei Lai. Dr. Schechter, Nancy Schechter, are you here? No? I will call for Steve Mack and Mei Lai. No? Okay. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak to this item? We're on item number 24.23, application for fence exemption, 38A Thelma Avenue. Seeing none, we'll ask, are there any members with questions to staff? No? Members to speak?
You're going to be delighted, Madam Chair. I'm going to be deferring this again. I met with the residents, and there is a genuine possibility that there might be an opportunity for mediation on this item. So we're going to give it one more cycle and see if we can achieve that.
Okay. All those in favor for the motion to defer? Any opposed? Seeing none, that has been adopted. We're moving on to TE 24.24, application for fence exemption, 95 Woodlawn Avenue West. There is a speaker who is registered, Carrie Johnson. Welcome, Carrie. I will start your clock when you're ready, and you have 5 minutes.
Nice to see you all again. I just want to say, first of all, as a courtesy to all of you, that what you do is important and your decisions affect the everyday quality of the people of Toronto. So thank you for your service to the people of Toronto. With respect to this, I know that it was, I made submissions already on February 2nd. What I have to add is simply that the houses are staggered on that street, and the side of our house falls back from the side of the other house. So I'm speaking to the bylaw enforcement people that are sitting here today. I say that because there's a specific requirement with respect to the front of a house. And since my neighbor has sued me for the cost of construction of this fence, therefore I think the front of the side of the fence, which my property can see, should be limited to 1.2 meters, since he is suing me for the cost of that fence. And as the houses are staggered, it's not a typical street where houses line up one next to the other. So I think for the portion that comes out in front of my house, the height limit should be set at 1.2 meters because the bylaw is not 100% clear on that issue. Yeah, so for the side portion that's coming out from my house, I would like it to be set at 1.2 meters unless there's the city staff can say why that shouldn't be the case. Also, just to be clear, there are 2 decks with fences of 10 feet of height currently that need to be reduced, in addition to the side yard and the backyard. So we're not just talking about one fence here, there are actually 4 fences that are affected. Those are my submissions.
Sorry, thank you for your deputation. Are there any members with questions for our deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much. Are there any other members who would like to speak to this item? Or sorry, any other members of the public who would like to speak to this item? No? Okay. Members who have questions for staff? Members to speak.
Madam Chair, I move to refuse the exemption.
Do you want to put a motion on the screen? Actually, sorry.
You don't?
Isn't that the staff?
I thought, is the recommendation not refusal? Oh, no, go with the refusal. Yeah. I understand. The refusal is just sort of more direct and, yeah.
We can put the motion in the system.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to refuse the exemption. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We are on to item TE 24.25, application for fence exemption for Wellesley Place. There is a speaker, Gregory Vitale. Okay, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Hi. Thanks for coming last week, Councillor. Just to get everybody up to speed, this was the, I had erected a rather large barrier between my neighbor and I to diffuse the light. I erected a fence about 16 feet high by 30. So we tried to come to a resolution last week. Councillor, I thought we had a deal, but he never did take down the light that he promised. In fact, he just replaced it with something similar. I sent pictures to your office regarding that. And just to emphasize the ongoing issues that I have with the neighbor, this is this week. There's another light that is on the west-facing wall of his property, which is coming onto my building there. And so he's continuing with this with a different light. That goes directly into my family room. That's the light. That's directly, that's a light that's directly into my line of sight. As per, the bylaw officers were very clear on describing to me what's allowed. I don't think that's allowed. On a side note, I think this is relative because unfortunately I have to make a harassment charge to this neighbor of mine because there was an incident with my sister-in-law the day after you were there.
Sorry, sir, if I can ask you to speak specifically to the item and the contents of the report?
No problem. I don't know if you can catch that. So this is a little video of the light. So that's me standing in the room, and it comes in quite clearly. So this is this week. I thought we were done with all this light business, and he's continuing with a different light now on the west-facing wall. So I would really encourage the bylaw officers to show up at night when I make the 311 calls. Part of the reason why I think I'm here is because last year, about 10 months ago, bylaw officers didn't show up to my property until the 30th day, and they encouraged I do nothing about it, and they promised they would take care of it. Well, nothing was taken care of. Into the 60th day of that original light, I put up the wall, and we are 10 months into this. I have not enjoyed any quiet, peaceful enjoyment. For 10 months, there's still a wall between me and him for the previous light and for the new light. So please come at night and I'll show you the light. And I don't want to hear that we're understaffed and we don't have guys at night. You do have guys at night, and that's why we pay all the taxes. I'm really sorry I'm here, Counselor. I thought we had a deal, but, he's just continuing his thing, so that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members with questions for the deputant? No, seeing none, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who are here who would like to speak to this item? We're on item number 25, fence exemption for Wellesley Place. Seeing none, any questions of staff? Councillor Fragedakis.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I'm just wondering, what are the rules about light? And does that qualify as harassment if you're shining a light into somebody's house from what it seems like nonstop?
Through you, Madam Chair, the rules are within our property standards bylaw. There's a provision for buffering a light that's a nuisance. It's being directed into a dwelling unit.
So it's prohibited?
In this case, we have reason to believe, as per our last site visit, that the light in question was disconnected. I'm hearing this for the first time, so.
So the video that he showed us on his cell phone?
I'm not sure when the video was taken, but we're more than happy to go out at night and confirm whether or not this light is being directed into the dwelling unit.
Okay.
Okay, any other members with questions of staff? No? Okay. Just a couple of questions for myself. District Manager, when you and myself and our Supervisor, Joe Slocum, and one staff member from my office attended a meeting directly on site, met the two property owners there, I believe there was a resolution that we left the properties after a half-an-hour meeting. I believe that we'd come to a resolution. Is that correct?
Correct, Madam Chair.
And the resolution was that the light that was, the alleged light that was creating the problem was identified as having already been disconnected. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that that light was not that light was not to be reattached or to be reconnected.
Correct.
Okay. As to the best of your knowledge, has that light been reconnected?
Not to my knowledge.
And there was an agreement that the 20 feet tall tarp fence was to be removed in exchange of that light not being reconnected and eventually dismounted.
Correct. And we were providing the owner of the property that's here before you with a few weeks to undertake that, which he committed to doing.
Okay. Do you have any reason to believe that that will not be done? The removal, the physical removal of that light?
As per our site meeting, the property owner at number 2 agreed to install some ambient lighting at about 8 feet over the doorways, just under the window frames, to replace what was previously the ambient light from that lighting fixture higher up.
And to your understanding, what you see in terms of the photos and images that were revealed, are they industrial lights? Do they look like ornamental residential lights? What type of lights are being shown to us?
They don't appear to be commercial or industrial in nature.
And do they look like they're sitting above the doorways?
They look as though they're approximately, just from being out at the property with you, about 7 or 8 feet above grade.
So certainly not so 7 or 8 feet above grade, so meaning it's capped at 1 story. Certainly not where the alleged trouble light was, which was sitting almost 2 stories above the grade.
That's
Is that
correct.
Do you have a problem with the lights at 7 to 8 feet above grade, residential style lights?
Usually we don't, as long as the beam of light is being directed down onto the property.
And if those lights do, if the lights do turn out to be problematic, will you take corrective action to ensure that they will no longer create a nuisance for the neighbor?
We will.
And you will be on site to investigate. Should the applicant who's here should the applicant who's here before us call and ask for an on-site inspection?
Yes, we will.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members who would like, any other members with questions of staff? No? Any members who would like to speak? Am I the only one? Yeah, okay. So I will be moving recommendation number 1, which is to refuse the request for the fence exemption. Having been on site and speaking to the 2 neighbors directly, I recognize that the situation is not necessarily as pleasant as we would like to see in terms of neighborhood relations. However, staff have been in attendance several times on site to physically inspect. I believe that they have come up with a resolution that is doable and is actionable. I think I'm very satisfied that staff say that they will go back if there are any complaints around light penetration that perhaps does not comply with municipal code. But for now, that 20 feet tall plastic tarp fence will have to come down. Any other questions of the mover? No? Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? No, that's been adopted. Thank you very much. Thank you. TE 24.26, refusal of a Boulevard Cafe permit application located at 162 Ossington Avenue, Foxley Street flankage. We do have a speaker who's registered, Julie Galliatos. Welcome, Julie.
Could I ask, as this is in Ward 19, whether we might hold down this item while we find Councillor Layton?
Sure, that's not a problem. If Councillor Layton is somewhere close and you are going to hear the monitor, your item on number 26 is up. We are going to, if I can ask you to just hang on tight, we want to make sure your local councillors here when you are speaking. I'm going to move to item 24.27. This is a refusal of an extension of a Boulevard Cafe permit located at 487 Adelaide Street West, unit number 100. It's a Portland Street flankage. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak to that item? No? Seeing none. Members of committee, questions of staff? No? Okay. Members to speak? Councillor Cressy?
Thank you, and I'm going to move to approve the proposed extension with the conditions included in the report.
Okay. Motions on the screen. All those in favor? Objections? Thank you. Seeing none, that's been adopted. TE 28.28, request received to impose operating conditions to a Boulevard Cafe permit license at 319 Augusta Avenue. Are there any members of the public who are interested in speaking to this item? No? Seeing none. Members of Community Council who have questions of staff? Seeing none. Members to speak. Councillor Cressy?
Yes, and I'm going to move approval with conditions in the report.
This is item number 28. Okay, we're just waiting for the motion to pop onto the screen.
28. We don't have an amendment.
I'm moving the conditions in the report.
Oh, just the report.
Yeah.
Okay.
The conditions are in the report.
Okay. So motion on the floor to adopt the recommendations in the staff report that already contain conditions. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's been adopted. Thank you. Item number TE 24.29, request received to impose operating conditions to... That's great. I'm still going to finish reading. You guys are so impulsive. Impulse control. Okay, TE 24.29, request received to impose operating conditions to a Boulevard Cafe permit license at 382 College Street, Borden Street flankage. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak to this item? Seeing none, are there any members who have questions of staff? No. Members to speak? Councillor Cressy?
I will be moving approval, and I'll note the conditions are in the report already.
Okay, motion's on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? No, that's been adopted. Thank you. Welcome back, Councillor Layton. We're going to go back to TE 24.26, refusal of a Boulevard Cafe permit application located at 162 Ossington Avenue, Foxley Street flankage. Julie, I know you're here. Thank you for your patience. Come on back. I will start your clock when you're ready.
Thank you for having me. I am here to discuss the patio at 162 Ossington Avenue. Councillor Mike Layton, you may recall us from Eric Yealand, our landlord, may have spoken to you a few times about this item. I'm new to this process, so just to give you some background, we've been operating out of this location since 2005. Oh, sorry. Shall I continue? And we have operated with this patio at its current size since then with no noise complaints or issues from our neighbors. However, when we went to rebuild the fence 2 summers ago, the city inspector mentioned that we were not complying with the city municipal codes in terms of where our existing fence was and where we were going to rebuild it. I'm here to ask you to review the recommendations, as we would like for the city to reconsider the measurements on our patio.
Sorry, someone hit the automatic door open, so.
Okay. This is just a photo of, I have various photos so I can keep showing them to you. However, our patio has existed here for 12 years without issue, and we are just asking the city to review the recommendations that we have. There are some issues with the measurements that we could go over with you at this time. One of the regulations is that there is a 25-meter clearance between the end of our patio and the nearest residence. And because the residence has a double driveway next to their residence, not in front of it, we're asking the city to consider that. I will show you the drawings here. I'm not sure if you're able to magnify them or not. So as you can see, our patio is on Foxley Street and Ossington, so we occupy a corner spot. There is an area between our patio and the residence next door, and they have a double driveway here. So we are asking if we may continue to use our existing patio at its current size, diminishing the size of it slightly to comply with some of the city regulations. We've had no issues with our neighbor, and we also have a new business behind us, which is located behind our back entrance here. They are open till 11 p.m. and they are a fast food takeout spot. So we are asking that we may review the measurements in our drawings, and that we ask also that we may have the option to open till 10 or 11 p.m. for the summer only.
Are you concluding your remarks there?
Yes, however, I can provide more information. I'm new to this, so.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that was quite helpful already. Are there any members who have questions for our speaker? No? Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who are here to speak to this matter? No? Members of Community Council, questions of staff? No? Members to speak? Councillor Layton?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm happy to move what is listed as recommendation 2, so the alternate recommendation that we approve the proposed Boulevard Cafe permit located at 162 Ossington. I know that staff don't have this because it does say, well, that's definitely not the one I want to go to. I'll do this instead of the form of a question or statement to you. I'll do it in my speaking, that there's not really a way for us to approve summertime hours. Mm-hmm. But perhaps since we haven't given notification, what we could do is in this motion change it to 9 p.m. Just because we had spoken to some of the resident association and around, although they didn't have concerns, I'm a little concerned just changing it so much. Or is that possible to do that? Just because we're not able to do it in a just seasonally. But to be honest, we've had no problems with Ideal Coffee. If we did have an application to extend it further, I'd be more than willing to entertain that as well. I would just like to have the opportunity to discuss it with some of the members of the community. But at 9 p.m. is fine for me to make that change right now. But let's talk further after. Ideal Coffee is an ideal neighbor, an ideal business. This is the ideal location for a patio in the city of Toronto. So maybe not quite. I would urge you all to support the revised recommendation. They do serve coffee.
Are there any
We do allow them to use our patio.
Are there any serious questions of the mover? No? Okay. Anyone else who would like to speak? Anybody else a big fan of Ideal Coffee? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Okay. Any opposed? That's been approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Okay, coming back to the agenda, we're now on TE 24.30, impact and relocation of existing sidewalk boulevard vending locations due to the Queen Street West construction. Ward 20. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak to this item? It involves sidewalks, vendors. I'm surprised. Okay, no one's here. Members who would like to ask questions of staff? No. Members to speak. Councillor Cressy.
First of all, I'm going to move the staff recommendations. And I just want to very quickly speak about this one. This is to do with the longtime street vendors selling arts and crafts that exist at Queen and Soho. Long time a TPA parking lot, now a MEC under construction with childcare and the parking underground. Part of the flavor of Queen West is, of course, the affordability and the artistic creativity of Queen West. These vendors were key to it. And so MLS, we've worked with staff, they have been exceptional working with us, the vendors, the contractors, and the developer to, during construction, have them move a little bit east, and then afterwards for them to return. And so this is to have a temporary location during construction. I just want to thank our staff for doing that, and for MEC and the contractors for working with us on it.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That's been adopted. TE 24.31, request for extension of operating hours of Boulevard Cafe located at 585 Church Street, Isabella Street flankage. There are speakers. Mr. Donald Altman. Welcome, sir. Is the applicant here? Oh, sorry, I didn't. Actually, there's before you organize yourselves into a speaking order, the first person I've called up is Donald Altman. Second speaker is Joseph Ballantyne. No? Okay, so.
Well, you have to make a ruling, but I assume that since he's not prepared to go first, I'm to go first.
Okay.
So I'm Donald Altman. I'm the president of the Church Isabella Residents Cooperative. Our building, one of our buildings, totally flanks along the other side of the street from the patio. The patio is basically the width of a residential street and a little bit of grass away from the building, where there are bedrooms all along the same side as the patio. Originally, this installation was just a coffee shop, and recently it has been converted to a restaurant with a liquor license. As noted in the report, the liquor license was approved with certain conditions. The staff recommendation is that the conditions be denied, and I'm here in support of the denial.
Thank you very much. Are there any members who have questions of the speaker? No? Okay, thank you. Next speaker is Joseph Ballantyne. Welcome, Joseph.
Hi, Councillor.
Hi. You have 5 minutes, and the clock is on your left.
Let me start off by saying thank you to you and Tristan for the support and help. I'm very easygoing. It's very easy just to shut somebody down, so I don't appreciate it, but I was willing to work with them in a sense for weekends, Friday and Saturday. holidays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, to extend the hours. I don't care for the music outside. It's a cafe, it's not a restaurant. It does have a liquor license. What me and my employees have done to that corner is astonishing. We've cleaned it up. We have a new crowd, young, mid, older. Everybody's enjoying themselves. It is not a nightclub. People go out, they enjoy the patio in the summertime, have gelato, a glass of wine. So what I'm looking for is to extend the hours. I've spoken to Tristan, basically followed, in a sense, what he has said, what we have spoken about. And I would like to be open Friday to Saturday on a regular weekend to 12, and 12:30, the entire patio will be cleared from occupants. During the week, Monday to Thursday and Sunday, we would shut it down at 11, like I do. And it's just pretty straightforward. I understand that they have concerns regarding sound and noise. Car traffic is a lot louder than my patio. My patio is very quiet. I don't think in the past 3 years, and by September it'll be 3 years, I don't think there has been one complaint regarding my patio. Last summer and the summer before that, I am open till 11. What's another hour? I don't see an hour being a big deal. In a sense, I understand that they want to sleep, and I would be concerned too, but I've showed that I'm able to control the corner. I'm able to control the noise. I respect everybody. Everybody respects me on Church Street. It's, we've really cleaned up the corner, and there's life now. And there's other business owners that are doing the same thing on Church Street to make it cleaner, better, and enjoyable for all residents and people that are coming to the street. I'm just hoping that you could understand, and I'm willing to work with them in a sense. I'm willing to scrap the music outside. I'm just looking for an extension on certain days. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Are there any questions of our speaker? No, Joseph, actually, before you go, I just want to clarify a couple of issues that was raised by the previous speaker. There was a statement made that you are currently a restaurant.
I'm not a restaurant. I don't serve, there's no cooking in my cafe. We get pastries from a French bakery on Mount Pleasant. I get cookies from Italian bakeries. Is that considered a restaurant because I have alcohol?
No, I think I wanted to just clarify in terms of what type of food service you provide.
Everything. So I have croissant sandwiches. I have baguette sandwiches. I have croque monsieurs. I have quiches. I have soup. That's it.
Okay.
That's all the food that I carry.
And with respect to comments about the liquor license, you do have a liquor license, correct?
I do have a liquor license, yes.
And the liquor license, does that extend to the patio?
It extends to the patio, yes.
And you recognize that there are a series of conditions that are attached to a potential approval?
So those conditions, this is a tricky situation. Those conditions were put in, and I agreed to those conditions with the AGCO because I needed to get up and running before Pride. Now, those conditions were done before Pride. I had some help, and I was told by the AGCO that I was able to amend the patio permit and the liquor license at later date, which I did, which I'm doing right now. Listen, it's a cafe. I'm a small business owner. I'm looking to grow. I respect everybody that's around me, and I'm sure if you talk to the residents, they'll agree with it. I've contacted the Residents Association and followed what Tristan has said to me. I've contacted them twice, and they never responded to me. So I'm willing to work with everybody, but it feels like they're not willing to work with me.
Joseph, I think what I'd like to ask you is There are 9 conditions that were attached to your patio. One of them is that you would not provide any amplified sound or music at any time on the patio.
There's no sound.
You agree to that?
Yes.
That the door must remain closed when music is being played inside the establishment?
Sure.
Do you ever clear away your tables and turn your cafe into a nightclub?
Absolutely not.
I ask only because sometimes it happens. You provide a telephone number for residents to register any concerns. Okay, that will go directly to your cell phone. You'll also make sure that there's no sound resulting from the operation of your business that is audible at a reasonable distance. You will ensure that.
Yes.
So these are conditions that have been attached to your patio. You will always post prominent signage at the main exits to remind patrons to be considerate of the residents of the surrounding community. Is that there right now?
Yeah.
Okay. That you will also have staff patrol and monitor any events and to make sure that the sound is kept at a reasonable volume. You always have staff on site. You will also make all best efforts to ensure that all areas immediately adjacent to the establishment are clean and free of debris and litter and refuge.
Yes.
Yes, you do that. And Joseph, will you use your best efforts to arrange garbage collection and recycling at times so that it does not disturb nearby residents?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, maybe 2 quick questions to staff. Recognizing that this is a application extending the operating hours, currently are there a number of grievances or complaints filed on this particular application?
To date, we have no current complaints.
There are no complaints, and to this date. And when did you start recording this information?
There was only 2 registered complaints. One was in 2015 and 2016 about them not obtaining a cafe permit, which was resolved by them obtaining a permit. And the last one was July 2016.
And so after July 2016, have there been any other additional complaints?
There's been no registered complaints with MLS.
And that complaint that generated in that one complaint that generated in 2016, what was that about?
It was a noise bylaw advisory.
And when you raised this issue with the operator of the business, was the issue resolved?
The issue was resolved according to bylaw enforcement.
Okay. And the reason for
Madam Chair, I do want to say that the reason there haven't been any complaints is not because there haven't been any reasons. We've been working really hard with our members to not complain in the spirit of which the gentleman spoke in terms of trying to be respectful. The fact that they have been working and closing at 11 without too much variation has been an expression back to us of an at least attempt.
Mr. Altman, the clerks are reminding me that the time for us to have brought you forward to speak has... I did ask if there were any members of the committee who had questions of you, and there were none at that time. He had an opportunity to answer questions as well, and that's why he was still on the floor. The question to staff remains. The application for the extension has been denied. Why was it denied?
The application was denied because it didn't meet the 25-meter rule, and we don't have authority to extend hours.
Okay. But given what you have observed and given what you know about the file and given what you know about the operator, if that rule did not exist, do you see a problem with this community council granting the exemption?
I can't answer that, Councillor. We've had no complaints, further complaints. We've only had one through bylaw enforcement on noise. To date, we don't have any complaints with the business operator.
If we were to approve the extension of the operating hours and have this under a review of 1 year, we would have this applicant before us once again in a 12-month period. That would allow us to ensure that if there were any improper operating standards, any conditions that were breached, at that point in time, we can then revoke the patio?
We can bring it forward back in a year's time if you like.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members, oh, sorry, go ahead. Councillor
Trying to
Davis?
understand where the conditions are from the AGCO.
There are no conditions attached to the cafe permit from the AGCO. These permits were established here. These
Right.
conditions were established here at TEYCC.
Okay, so there were no conditions from the AGCO.
Not that I'm aware of that are attached to this Boulevard Cafe permit. The conditions that
Okay,
I'm
'cause
aware of
both-
are in the report.
Both deputants spoke about AGCO conditions. Okay.
But I think that you would like to speak. Is that what I'm sensing from your body language? Oh, sorry, my list only had 2 speakers, so you're here to speak to this item. Okay, so why don't we vary the procedure and have you come forward? Please have a seat. We will give you 5 minutes to speak. We'd like to hear from you. Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion to vary the procedures. Okay, Councillor Cressy, all those in favor? Okay, the clock is on your left.
My name is Gregory Greason. I am the past president of Church Isabella Residence. I speak against any extension of these hours, as this is primarily a residential area. There are examples within 1 and 2 block radiuses of our premises there that the bylaws are very strictly enforced for 11 o'clock closing hour due to the residential nature in there. I also would like to point out that when this boulevard license was initially applied for 2 years ago, I believe, that the residents were supposedly within a 120-meter radius to be polled on this. The addresses within the immediate adjacency to the boulevard were not polled by some clerical error or whatever it is. And I feel that we're being a little bit railroaded here in that this is a residential area in very close proximity to the patio. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members who have questions for our speaker? Okay. So, sir, actually, maybe I'll just ask a question. With respect to the request for the operating, I recognize that the street is mixed use. It's a combination of residential as well as commercial.
Not on Isabella Street. His address is Church Street. The patio flanks on Isabella Street. But all within that 120-meter radius, there is no commercial establishment. It is all residential.
Within a 120-meter radius from this location?
Yes.
All residential?
All residential.
This is directly across the street from your co-op.
Correct.
That is probably about 20 meters. 20 meters for a four-lane road.
2-lane.
Okay, so 2-lane road. It's 10 meters away from your establishment.
Right.
How can you say that it's a only residential neighborhood?
All right. Yes, there is that commercial one there, but immediately across Church Street at 608 Church is a residential building. 66 Isabella Street, residential building, which is diagonally across. And immediately to the east at 77 and 79 Isabella are residences.
Okay.
And 6688 Isabella is residential.
Are there any other questions of the deputant? No? Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who are here to speak to this issue? Please indicate if you are here to speak to this item. Okay. Thank you very much. Any other, I did ask members who had questions of staff. There are no more. Any other members who, oh, sorry. Councillor McConnell, go ahead.
sorry, I didn't indicate it until after the speaker. So this notion of the polling, because after all, the flankages on residential streets require polling, and they're there at the behest, if you wish, of the residents, not of the business. So what was the result, and why is it being suggested that not everybody got the poll? What's that about? A poll is conducted for a resident flankage with residents within 120 meters of the cafe.
And it was for a cafe, not for a restaurant? It was different than it is now?
It's for the cafe, it's for the patio. A poll is conducted for the patio use.
Okay, and what was the result?
I'll have to find the results in the file, Councillor.
Okay. Do you know if it was approved by the poll?
The poll was conducted in 2015. The actual number of ballots returned was 147, in favor was 116, opposed were 19.
Okay, thank you.
So just to clarify, can you repeat those numbers?
Actual number of ballots returned was 147. In favor of the Boulevard Cafe was 116. Opposed was 19, and spoiled were 12.
Okay. And the second thing is that the last speaker indicated that the people who lived closest were not given ballots. Did you have anything like that in terms of challenging this at the time?
We did not. The ballots are returned to city clerks.
Okay.
They're not returned to MLS.
No, of course, yeah, okay. So we don't know whether that's correct or not? Never mind, we don't know, that's all.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Members to speak? What I'd like to do is move a series of conditions and to approve the application. It does not get the applicant to exactly where he wants to go, which are dramatically extended hours, but it's an incremental extension. This is a series of conditions. There's 9 of them in total. They are quite onerous. I believe that the applicant has been working very hard to make sure that he has been able to reduce the number of complaints. I am discouraged to hear that we have neighbors directly across the street who feel like they are being perhaps affected. I want to make sure Mr. Ballantyne and those members of the co-op, I'd like to create a dialogue between the two neighbors. You are literally 10 meters away from each other. I believe some of the co-op members are customers. I know certainly there are many people in the community who value the service. We in our office have not heard too many. I mean, we don't generally hear from you at all until this particular application has come about. The Church Wellesley Neighborhood Association has not taken a position, largely because the BIA's boundary does not extend this far north, but the BIA themselves and had also no opposition. So I think given the fact that we do have some broad support in the community, I want to be able to grant you this extension, which gives you an incremental time expansion, but you have to comply with these 9 conditions, and you'll be brought back before this community council once again in 12 months. We want to make sure that those good neighborhood relations maintain, and Joseph, I'm going to ask you to work really hard to make sure that the residents directly across the street are going to be working with you to get to a resolution that when your application comes back to us in 12 months, everybody is singing from the same page of support. Sorry, Joseph, the process is closed to you now. I do know that Councillor Davis has a question.
So are you required, I read in the report that these 9 conditions were approved in June. So they need to be renewed because we are now renewing the cafe.
So, Councillor Davis, the answer to your question is that the applicant has been brought before us on 12-month renewals. So, and this is our way at Community Council to ensure that if there are any outrageous grievances that emerge, we have some control in the matter. I'm very satisfied that what has transpired over the 12 months since the last time this matter was before us is that we have an operator that has been working really hard to maintain that corner, try to provide some semblance of community service, and that's why I'm making this approval. but I think we recognize there's
These are the conditions that were in place last year.
That is correct.
And they're being renewed with some slight changes in the.
It's a 1-hour extension on weekend service. And we had heard from, and we also had heard from staff is that they have not been receiving any area complaints about their operations. Are there any other questions of the mover? No? Okay. Any other speakers? All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that is adopted. Thank you very much. We are on TE 24.32, Commercial Boulevard Parking, 267 Brock Avenue. Excuse me. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak to this issue? Yes, sir. Come on forward. I will start your clock. You have 5 minutes. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? I just want to make sure that our speakers list is updated. Okay, so please go ahead.
I'm Andrew Dales. I'm a planning consultant on behalf of the applicant. We have a situation here where this old industrial building that's been converted to residential, it's about to be finalized. There's no parking on the property, and this proposal will not get rid of any on-street parking spaces. It won't block any on-street parking spaces. And there's currently a real demand in the building for some additional parking. Again, this is a commercial situation currently, and there's a real need for it amongst tenants in the building, and we would ask that you would approve this second boulevard parking space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members who have questions for our speaker? No? Okay, any other member? Thank you, sir. Are there any other members of the public who are here to speak to this matter? Okay, let's bring this inside. Any members with questions to staff? Councillor Bailão, and then Councillor Davis.
So is this a new request?
It's a request from the new owner of the building. This location was licensed for 2 spaces many years ago. It has been licensed for quite a while.
Since when?
Approximately 1981.
So there's been 2 parking spots since 1981.
Pretty well, yes.
And this is a mixed-use artist work-live studio, so we have some residents, some workspaces in there.
That's correct.
Is there any visibility issues, anything that can be created by continue giving?
The same ones that have existed over the years.
Okay.
Some minor issues.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Davis.
So it does not meet what requirements? The clearance from the sidewalk? Is that why it's not?
The code requires a 0.9 meter setback from the sidewalk to accommodate the opening of the doors so that they don't encroach over the sidewalk itself, impede the sidewalk when opening it.
And the current parking spot meets that requirement?
Yes.
Okay, so one would meet, the one that exists meets the requirement, and this one does not meet the clearance requirement.
Correct.
So the reason that did it expire because, did the second spot expire? License?
The license got closed once we get a new change of ownership. So once we get a new change in ownership, we continue with the regulations in place. The reason it doesn't meet is because there's a gas meter, and where the gas meter is, they put in 2 steel posts to protect the gas meter. Because of that, there's less of a setback.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Councillor Layton, and then I'm coming back to Councillor Bailão.
Thank you very much. The proposed parking spaces in attachment A, they're both different sizes. I'm curious about that. Why is the proposed one different from the previously licensed one?
The one that was previously licensed, that's the that it was licensed for a subcompact vehicle at the time. So we just relicensed it the way it is, even though it can be licensed for larger size.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bailao, Councillor Davis, I'm just going to open up for a second round of questions. I see that there's a lot of quizzical expressions, and I want to make sure you are satisfied. Councillor Bailao, and then I'm coming back to Councillor Davis.
I hope planning can help me on this. Is there a current application going on for rezoning of this site? Choose 67 Brock, is there a current application for rezoning?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, there isn't. I don't think we have one in right now for that one. It is my...
Is that the...
After the questions of staff, can we stand this down?
Sure, of course. Councillor Davis also has questions. Do you want to stand down the entire item at this point? Okay. So Councillor Davis, go ahead, please.
So this was approved, what I just saw indicated verbally and with body language from the applicant that this has already been approved or rezoned or something, went to Committee of Adjustment. So it must have dealt with the question of parking there. So you probably should look at whether or not this was approved conditional on there being parking available. I don't know. I think it needs more inquiry. But what I don't understand, Mr. Filippetti, if when the ownership changes, you have to then again reissue the permits, why was the smaller one issued automatically? It met the requirements, and so therefore you just issued it?
The space that was previously licensed did meet the requirements of the bylaw, so we just relicensed it the way it was. But the second space, because of the gas meter and the poles beside it, no longer meets the setback requirements, which we cannot license.
Thank you.
Are there any other members with questions? Okay. Councillor Bailao, what I'm going to do is just hold this item down. I recognize that we're not ready to deal with it. We are going to proceed to TE 24.33, front yard parking appeal, 88 Balmoral Avenue. We do have a speaker, Hannah Zieda. Is Hannah Zieda here? Okay. Are there any other members of the public who are here to speak to this? Welcome. If you want to take a seat right at the front there, and just place yourself in front of those microphones, hit the lights, and when you're ready, I'll start your clock. You have 5 minutes.
Is there a connection point, or I guess I would use this here. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Ziada. I'm here to speak to you about the front yard parking appeal for my house, 88 Balmoral Avenue. And I'm really here to plead my case with you. I know you hear a lot of different front yard parking appeals, but this one, is concerning my family, and it's really a quality of life issue for us. We don't have any designated parking currently. And on Balmoral Avenue, as you may or may not be aware, the street parking situation is quite tenuous. So what happens when we are trying to park our car is that we end up parking our car far away from the house. So what that means to me and my family, we've got 2 small children, a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. So this makes life quite challenging. If you can imagine, bringing home a bag of groceries and also having 2 children that you're trying to bring to or from the car. So it's the distance from the house, the parking issue. it's not safe to leave one child far away from where I am to load the other child in. There's also the speed of the cars on the street is an issue, as well as, if you can imagine loading two children into the back seat of your car, you have to open one door out into moving traffic to do so. I'm often carrying my infant in a car seat into moving traffic to try and open the door and get her in. So it's not that I don't have any parking near the house. We don't have any arrangements with neighbors where we could park. So it is. So it's definitely a quality of life issue and a safety issue for me and my family. So, so I just wanted to bring that forward to you. I do have a couple of other points. The current status of our front yard is that it's all entirely paved, with the exception of one flower bed at the front. So we would be increasing the amount of permeable land on our spot with the new design. And you will be aware from the staff report that a small tree was planted there last year. I believe it has not survived the winter and will need to be replanted anyways. And we would like to invest in a larger tree to support the streetscape, to replace the current tree that's there as we hopefully move forward. I also wanted to identify for you that our street is a bit unique in that every single house on the street, with the exception of ours, does have currently designated parking. And so that leaves our neighbors overwhelmingly supporting our application and moving forward. So people who I spoke to while I was campaigning for their support said, of course, we can't believe you don't have parking. Street parking is so hard on our street. Of course you need this. You have our support. And so the other house that didn't have parking was just approved very recently by council to move forward with their parking spot. So this is the last spot on the last house on the street without parking. And I really hope we can move forward. Last but not least, we are a green family. We are hoping to support the city's vision towards moving to reducing emissions, and we would like to acquire an electric car, and of course that's not possible without having designated parking in our area. So those are kind of the main points that I think summarize why it would really be very helpful and make a difference to us to be able to park near our house. So I understand that that parking spots are a hot topic, but really this is a significant issue for me and my family and our small children. So I hope that you can support us in moving forward.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for our speaker today? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any other members who are here to speak? No? Okay, let's bring this inside. Members of who have questions of staff? No? Members to speak? Councillor Matlow?
Actually, I must admit, I'm wondering whether or not I should move the alternate recommendation or defer it, given that the tree is still being assessed, which is one of the main issues that is being considered. Yeah. I'm going to defer it for a round. There's one issue that I just want to understand. There's a tree replaced. There's a new one there in its place, and there's still a question about whether or not the tree protection zone is in fact affected. So I'm going to defer it for one round, and we'll take a look at this in a month.
Okay. All those in favor of the deferral? Okay. Any opposed? Thank you. We'll see this item back in a month. T 24.34, front yard parking appeal, 76 Dugan Avenue. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak? Okay, please, welcome, sir. If there are members of the public who would like to speak, we would like to get you on the speakers list. You have 5 minutes. I'll start your clock. And if you can just start with your name.
It's Ian Alexander. I'm the owner at 76 Duggan. Been there for a couple of generations. I've been working on this for some years, and I just got the notice about this meeting on Thursday, and my manufacturing company has been gentrified out of downtown, and I've had to leave May 1st with 12 employees, 6,000 square feet. So I had to be out Monday, and I got the notice of this meeting last Thursday through the mail. So I've been working around the clock, and I haven't had any time to address this, so I would prefer a referral to a later date. But I could address any questions.
I have a question.
There's a question of you, sir. Go ahead, Councillor Mallow.
Hi, and welcome. Could you just know back, so you only received the notice on
Thursday, last week, Wednesday or Thursday, because it was at my residence, and I've been working until 10 or 11 o'clock moving my company.
Oh, I see. So you just didn't have an opportunity to...
I opened the mail yesterday, yeah.
Okay.
But I could speak to anything about the...
No, if you're asking for deferral,
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions for our speaker? No? Thank you, sir. Thank you. We welcome you here. Are there any members of the public who would also like to speak to this item? No? Any questions of staff from members? Members to speak? Councillor Mallow?
Well, I'll move deferral of this too. The resident says that he, well, I think he acknowledges that he got the notice on Thursday, that he's been working all day, late tonight, and he only received, he only read it, he only had it in his hands yesterday. And actually, I just heard from him for the first time at my office today. So I'd like to defer it and give him an opportunity just to sort of get his head around what he'd like to do about this, and we'll revisit it.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Perks.
I'm going to move the staff recommendation to deny. While I appreciate that the gentleman opened his mail yesterday, we have to remember what it is we're doing here. We're hearing appeals of a decision that staff have already made. So the resident in this case already knew that the staff had turned it down, already knew what those reasons were, and has been able to get himself here and has an opportunity to address them. It's not like he found out that it was going to be denied on Thursday. He's known for quite some time. In fact, he's known well enough to appeal the decision. So on the previous one, there was outstanding information that the local councillor and the applicant didn't have. And I can understand if there's outstanding information, you need to do more work. But there's no outstanding information here.
Okay, thank you very much. We have two motions on the floor. The first one is to defer. We'll vote on that first. Are there any others who want to speak to this matter? No? Okay, so the deferral motion is before us. And it is a 1 or 2 month, Councillor Mallow? 1 month, okay. All those in favor of the deferral, please indicate your support. 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor, 8 in favor, 9 in favor. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on to TE 24.35, front yard parking appeal, 61 Forest Hill Road. Members of the public who are here to speak to this item, please identify yourself. Okay, please step forward. Welcome.
Hello.
Okay, so you've got 5 minutes. Please start.
Okay, I'm Andrew Dales. I'm here as a planning consultant to the owner, Jeff Walderman, who's beside me today. I'm here to ask for a deferral of this matter. We got a copy of the staff report, and we immediately realized that there was some erroneous information in the report. We went directly back to staff, and we asked staff to have a look at this again. Our landscape architect had another look at it, and it was clear that mistakes were made, I guess, on both sides. And so staff revised the report, and I guess what I'm seeing here today is that it's the original report that's in the file. So, and it appears that neighbor, this is a successful positive poll, but one of the neighbors wrote a letter that's in the file here today. That's based on the erroneous information. If this neighbor had the correct information in front of them, I'm pretty sure that those issues wouldn't be there. So we ask that this matter be deferred until the next meeting, so that the proper report can get into the file, and the neighbor could read the correct information and base their information on that.
Thank you very much. We have questions for you from Councillor Davis and then Councillor Matlow.
Am I reading this right? 61 Forest Hill Road?
Correct.
Correct?
And that you have a double-car garage? And you still want front yard parking?
Yes, because the double-car garage is on Heath, and I would like people to walk in, rather than walk into my service entrance, walk into my front door.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Councillor Mallow.
Hi. So would you mind just repeating, either one of you, specifically what information you believe is erroneous?
Sure. So you turn to page 2 of our report. It says reasons for not approving.
Okay.
And bullet point number 2 is the paved area for the parking does not provide the required clearances from the existing trees. So we've gone back to staff, and the proposed parking pad does in fact provide the required clearance from the trees, and the letter from the neighbor is based specifically on that item. We are outside of the tree protection zones altogether.
Okay, and then, so for what reason would you like the deferral?
To have our neighbor have the opportunity to have a look, to my client's neighbor have an opportunity to look at the report and see that there are no facilities at all located within the tree protection zone.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other members with questions? No? Okay, thank you very much, both of you. Any questions of staff? Okay, Councillor Matlow.
Yeah, I'd like to ask staff specifically about that concern that was raised by the appellant's representative about the information that was provided to us.
The proposal that was initially submitted for the report, the measurements we had for the setback to the property line, to the building itself was erroneous. We determined that once we received the new survey and their new proposal, there was an error of about 1 meter. In going back, confirming the measurements, the tree itself is not within, the parking space itself is no longer within the tree protection zone. So it meets the requirements in terms around the tree protection zone itself. The only reason it was refused now would be because of the permit parking.
Okay, so you validate the concern that was raised about the quality of the information?
Yes, that's been corrected. No longer a tree is no longer the issue. It's just because the property has a private driveway that to a double garage that is being refused.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I just add that a supplementary report was submitted on that? So that was a supplementary report dated April 27th.
Is that a supplementary report or is that a revised report?
Revised.
Revised.
Okay. A revised report. We do have more questions for you, staff. Councillor Davis first, and then Councillor Mihevik.
Just wondered if there's on-street parking generally.
There's no permit parking on this side of the street.
No, I'm not talking about overnight permit parking, just parking. So guests could park on the street in the front.
I don't have that information.
Okay. Is there a sidewalk that connects the flankage?
There's a city sidewalk around the property, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mihevik?
My question was on the parking bylaws on Forest Hill Road and Heath Street at this location.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Councillor?
Well, I think it was the same as Councillor Davis. What the parking regs are on Forest Hill Road and on Heath Street West.
I don't have that information. All I know is that there's no overnight parking on the street.
I have a point of order.
Okay, just hang on, everyone. Councillor Fragedakis has a point of order.
Sorry, why is the off-street parking staff answering questions related to permit parking? Isn't that Mr. Lafreddi's job? No offense, Mr. Pellegrini, but that's not really your area. So perhaps Mr. Lafreddy could answer the questions that relate to street parking versus the asking Mr. Pellegrini to answer them. He's the
I
off-street
want
parking.
anyone who can answer.
No, I wasn't saying
Services
anything to you.
Division.
I was actually standing on a point of order.
Would you let, I'd be happy to take your questions.
I think Councillor Davis is getting answers from staff. I think staff are choosing, self-selecting and behind them in the back row on who's going to answer the question. Has the question been adequately answered? Or actually, I recognize you were in the middle of answering the question. Is that correct?
Well, I'm still on my point of order.
Okay, so
my point of order is that the staff that actually deal with permit parking and street parking is not the person answering the questions. Perhaps the questions could be answered if the appropriate staff was actually answering the questions, so we can get an answer.
Let me just say that unfortunately I don't have the information about the parking regs on that particular street with me at this time. It's something that we can obtain, but don't have them with me right now.
Councillor Mihevc, do you have a follow-up question? Councillor Mihevc, do you have a follow-up question? No? Are there any other members? Do we have any other, can I just ask the conversation to be brought back into the circle? Are there any other members here who have questions of staff? Seeing none, okay. Members to speak. Councillor Matlow.
Well, as the residents' representative, I intend to act on the request to defer. I'm not asking you to support it today, and I'm not asking you to deny it. I know, based on my conversations with some of you, that you look at this and your initial response, never mind initial, your very honest response is that you think this is something that just is over the top and not something that you would ever support. And you'll have your opportunity to express that very clearly, I'm sure. That being said, though, if you contextualize this, and again, I'm not arguing in favor of it today, I'm arguing in favor of deferring it based on the request. But between now and June, if we have the opportunity to vote then, there are two things that you may want to consider as I am. One is, and this may not be interesting to you, but this actually isn't out of character on the street whatsoever. It actually fits in quite reasonably to what this neighborhood has accepted as the norm, whether you like it or not. This also has been a controversial item in the past, which I know that this resident and his neighbors have worked well to resolve and work out issues and come to a place, I think, of peace. The other thing that you may want to consider is that if it doesn't go in this direction, there also is an opportunity for the resident to go to the Committee of Adjustment and do something else that will most likely end up with just as much hard surfacing. So for me, I don't actually see this as a question of like, are we going to have like, hard or soft surfacing there? That's not the question. It's more about just how is this configured to make it work for the resident of the community. And this is something that the community and the resident have agreed on. So if this was a question of like, are we going to be removing trees or taking away a park or removing a big lawn or something, that's not what we're debating here. Anyway, that's a speech for another time. But they've requested, based on what has been validated, whether you like it or not, which is that there was erroneous information provided in the initial report. They want to explore that issue. And I think given that, I mean, whatever side of the coin you are on this, the fact remains is that we as the city made an error. They'd like an opportunity in fairness to review, and I don't know what they want to do with this, frankly. They haven't discussed it with me, but they do want to explore what that meant to them. And then we will consider this in June. And then you can make the same speech in June quite validly, if that's how you feel, about how you don't like this, but that's not what we're considering today.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Matlow. And I think clerks wanted to clarify that this is a deferral for one cycle. Okay. Question of the mover? Okay, you just have to hang on.
My understanding is the reason there's been a request for deferral is because there was some confusion about the information. But there has been a revised report which has clarified the information. So, and I see Mr. Twaddle nodding his head, it's here, revised 24.35. So, are you aware of that, is my question. Of the mover.
I've become aware of that, and I see the revision in the report. That being said, though, it's not my impression that I'm concerned so much about is that the resident, was not aware of that, and they were still, what I'm hearing from them is that they're still seeking to resolve what happened, why it happened, did it affect them, and I just know that when we're dealing with these kind of issues that impact both property value and quality of life so directly, that if there are just lingering issues and especially when we messed up. When I say we, I mean the city messed up initially, and it's been agreed that happened, that at least give them their opportunity just to understand, like, what impacts does that mean to us? How did that sway the decision? Did it sway the decision? We may end up in the same place, but it's not a matter of did we get a supplemental report or revision. It's a matter that they weren't aware of this coming in, and they've made a request today.
Long answer, but...
that's my thought process.
But you would agree the facts are clear before us. It is outside the tree protection zone.
I'm not disagreeing with the facts before us. What I'm submitting to you is that, in fairness to the resident, the facts were not the full facts at the outset. In fact, the facts were wrong. And they are trying to understand how this impacted or swayed or prejudiced the outcome. Whether or not it did, I mean, that's what we will resolve, but they need to understand that, and they're asking for an opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Any other questions of the mover? We have speakers. Okay, Councillor Layton.
Thank you very much. I'll move the staff recommendations to deny the request. With the deepest respect to Councillor Matlow and to Andrew, I don't think that this is the direction that we want to continue down. I know that Councillor Matlow expressed that maybe this is the condition in some places on this street, and in the previous two items ago, we saw that this was just one in a line of previous mistakes that I believe Toronto and East York Community Council and those that preceded us have made, and it's our position to at some point say, you know what, this is or this is not appropriate. And it's not just the notion of a tree pit coming in close proximity to, of a parking pad coming in close proximity to a tree protection zone. It has some fundamental implications to be, are we a target zero pedestrian safety city, or are we not? Are we a city that's going to fight for better stormwater retention on site, or are we not? What is our wet water flow master plan if we're just going to keep paving over front yards? It's worthless. It's nothing. Our zero pedestrian fatality number is worth nothing if we just continue down this path. The reality is, it's exactly that. It's a quality of life issue, and it's that the parking spots should be the approach in which visitors to the home that the owner wishes to take is through a different entrance. Well, I would suggest that there are in fact 4 parking spots on this site. There's 2 in garages and 2 in front of the garages. And is that not enough for this particular home to have, rather than us just adding more paved surfaces in the public right-of-way? And I don't think there's any reason for us to defer. We have a supplemental report before us.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Cressy.
I'll be very brief. While I almost always support and respect a deferral request from a local councillor, and I just have in the last 2 items, I cannot hear. This house has a 2-car garage already, and no deferral will change that. And for that reason, I don't think it is in the best interest of this community council's time to discuss this again in a month's time. Thank you.
Okay. We have any other speakers? Councillor Davis.
And the resident informed me there is parking on Forest Hill Road, and so guests could park on the street, and if they want to enter the front entrance, and with our default parking of 3 hours, it certainly gives people significant amount of time, and people staying overnight, I presume, could stay where the 4 parking spots are, or walk around the house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers? Okay, so there is a deferral motion from Councillor Matlow before us. Is for 1 month. This item will come back in June. All those in favor of the deferral motion, please indicate your support. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's 3 in favor. All those opposed? Oh, sorry, 4 in favor. All those opposed? 8. So that does not pass. There is another motion before us. The motion is to adopt the staff recommendations. All those in favor of the staff recs? Yeah, okay. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's 6. And all those against? All those opposed? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that wins on the staff report has been adopted. Thank you very much. We are now on item TE 24.58, two-way operation Charles Street West. I had held this item down. I don't believe there's any speakers from the public. Are there members of the public who are here to speak to this item? There's hardly anybody left. I'm going to move a 2-month deferral and a 2-cycle deferral and have this matter come back in September. I'll be working with the community to build awareness of this particular road traffic operation. And we'll be coming back in September with hopefully a clearer understanding of whether or not the community supports this new initiative. Any questions of the mover? I've simply moved to defer this matter till September. Okay, all those in favor of the deferral? Any opposed? Seeing none, that's been adopted. Thank you. We have an item before us, TE 20, which is bringing us back to Councillor Davis's item. Councillor Davis, are we ready to deal with your item? Residential on-street parking permit. Or should we actually just move through the rest of the item? There's only 3 more for us to go through. And then there is the big on-street permit parking matter and then the liquor license, which we're ready to deal with.
Just while we're deciding what to deal with, the new business from Councillor Bailão and Layton, 24.90, we have planning staff who are here solely for that item waiting. So I don't know what the rest of our agenda looks like, but if it was possible to move that quickly, it might allow our planning staff to get back to reviewing applications.
Yeah, so Councillor Cressy, we haven't introduced that item yet, but what we can do is introduce.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I did? Oh, we.
About 90 and 91 needs to be added.
Yeah, so we are on item number, are you referring to item number 91?
90.
90, okay, so you are also interested in, so this item 91 of Councillor Matt Lowe's. Yeah, so can I get a motion to add item number 91? And this is a new business request to designate Mount Pleasant Road's local movie houses under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Okay? Okay. So, great. So we'll just add that to the agenda. So we broke the 91 threshold. Okay, so let's go back to the agenda, folks. So we're almost done. We do have some big discussions before us. Councillor Davis, are you ready to deal with your item?
Are we dealing with 89, 90, and 91, or?
Well, that was this was my.
I would accept your recommendation that we just deal with these 3.
Okay, so why don't we do that? So we're going to continue to hold down 60 and 71. We're moving right on to TE 24.88. Yeah, sorry.
Go back to that item also on 267 Brock, because staff could also leave as well, because that was their last time. Wasn't it?
Well, they have to be here for the next one.
And it's a defer.
Can I ask you folks just to hang on? I'm just trying to, okay, so we're ready to dispense with item TE 24.32, Commercial Boulevard Parking, Appeal 267 Brock, correct?
I'm asking it to be deferred to next month, because there's some things that we need to.
If I can just get you guys to not speak over one another, it's really hard for me to follow the primary speaker. So Councillor Bailão, you're asking for a deferral, correct?
A deferral.
Okay, is it
Which item?
This is item number TE 24.32.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's a 1-month deferral, it's a 1-cycle deferral, so it'll come back in June. All those in favor of the deferral? We're going to discuss this in June. Okay, any opposed? No? Great. Okay, so now let's go back to TE 24.88, implementation of permit parking on non-licensed streets in Ward 32. Councillor McMahon. New item introduced,
yes.
implementation of permit parking on non-licensed streets in Ward 32. Do you want to just quickly speak to that and perhaps move the contents of your letter?
Right. Why did I think I spoke to this already? It's Groundhog Day. I thought we had
No,
done.
you introduced it?
Oh, no. You know what? I introduced it and then I moved it right away because we voted and I spoke on it.
I don't think any, none of us got that.
No, because remember I mentioned that people who lived on those streets, or maybe that was just for the introduction.
Councillor McMahon, we introduced 3 items.
So
at the
you'll
same
recall this. We voted on it here last month. We voted on it at council, and it has to come back. That's the process. And now, once we vote on it now, it will be implemented. And this is to implement permit parking on the 10% of my streets that don't have it, to be equitable and to raise revenue. Tons of revenue. And also I have a report back to see how much revenue we raise so I can use it for Transform TO and other great things. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
And I encourage other councils to do the same. Thank you.
All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. Seeing none, that's been adopted. We're moving right along. TE 24.89, 1186, 1188, and 1190 Woodbine Avenue. Authority to attend an Ontario Municipal Board hearing, Ward 31.
I'll move adoption of the recommendation.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's moving along. TE 24.90, Bloor Street West Planning Study Status Update on item TE 1181. This affects wards 18, 19, and 20. Who would like to take this one on? Okay, Councillor Layton.
Thank you. I'd like to move the recommendations in our letter.
Okay.
I too would like to move. No.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That's been adopted. Thank you. We did have a new item that was introduced. That's TE 24.91. Councillor Matlow, new business request to designate Mount Pleasant Roads local house movie houses under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act.
Yes, very briefly, any of you who have been along Mount Pleasant Road, north of the Beltline up to Eglinton, knows that there are 2 iconic and historical movie houses there, the Mount Pleasant and the Regent, formerly the Belsize. Yeah, and back in the vaudeville days, Gord Perks would go there as a small child to perform. But in all sincerity, there is certainly a Are you done? Are you done, Grandpa? These are iconic movie houses, but like many in the city, they are possibly under threat given the fact that the properties will be up for sale. So we want to get ahead of it and make sure that while one of them is listed, the other has no designation at all. And we want to make sure that we are proactive, and I look forward to our preservation staff moving swiftly on this request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that's been adopted. Thank you. There are 3 more items on the agenda as by my count. If the clerks will correct me if I'm wrong. Let's deal with item number TE 19, which belongs to Councillor Matlow.
Yes, this is perfectly fine. I move it, but with the amendment that you will see before you, making sure that they're good neighbors, along with working with the neighbors to ensure that everyone's concerns are resolved. You may remember, by the way, this is the site where we are, not only are we not getting a tower right across the street from houses, we are getting a tower, but it's quite set back with a new green space along with over 50 affordable childcare spaces for the Yonge and Eglinton community.
Wonderful. Congratulations. Are there any questions of the mover? Seeing none. Anyone else who'd like to speak? No? Okay, so let's vote. Let's vote. Let's vote. Let's vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that's been adopted. Congratulations, Councillor. We are ready to dispense with
60 and 71.
Yeah, so let's deal with the liquor licenses. Let's just get that done. TE 24.71, are you ready?
Yeah, can I just, we
Okay.
have
Okay, so let's deal with number T 24.71, which is the endorsement of events for liquor licensing purposes that affects everybody. Just to bring your attention to one additional amendment, it is the Mutati International Drumming Festival. It's a rather late addition, so we don't want you to be surprised, and it is happening at Woodbine. I don't want to bring too much time to it, but there is alcohol service between 12 noon and 8 p.m. So that is now also added to the grand list of events. Okay.
Councillor Cressy has to move an amendment first.
Councillor Cressy, you've got another one?
I'm so sorry.
Councillor Cressy, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, guys. I have, sorry, guys. I have an amendment, which is for these 4 locations, to exclude them from patio exemptions. Thank you.
Okay. Any other amendments? You want to add more venues, take out more venues? Okay, so we're ready to go then? Okay. So we are voting on, and you'll take note that the clerks have been really working hard to make sure that you can have a format where the events are listed in a manner that has grid patterns. You see this? This is actually to make your life easier, and you're still not paying attention. You can thank the clerks when you have a moment. This takes a lot of time and effort on their part. So there was a motion, first of all, from Councillor Cressy. Let's vote on that first. All those in favor to exclude those businesses? Okay. Any opposed? That has been adopted. And then the report.
We can just do the adopt. Amended.
Yes.
That would be fine.
That's right. So then the report as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? None? Okay, so we can proceed. So that item has been dispensed with, and finally, okay, this matter has been referred, I think, deferred 3 times now. It is item TE 24.60, expansion of the residential on-street permit parking program, potential policy changes and/or bylaw amendments. Again, it affects everyone, held by Councillor Davis. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak to it? No, there's only one member of the public left. All eyes are on you, young lady. Okay. Any questions of staff? Councillor Mihevc.
Just back of envelope with no commitment whatsoever, how many extra parking spots would we get out of this? Back of envelope.
In the review that was done, what we did was we identified the kilometers of roadway that could have the potential of being added to the program, but we did not tally up the actual number of parking spaces.
It's in the
if we look at kilometers of roadways, it'll give us an idea of how many more parking spaces.
How many kilometers of roadway?
Pardon me?
How many kilometers?
We're looking at an additional 235 kilometers of roadway.
Okay, and how many meters does a spot take?
5.5 meters.
So it's 5.5 into 230,000, basically. Minus this and that.
35.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. But keep in mind that in the kilometers that I'm talking about, the 235 kilometers, you'll have no parking zones, you'll have corner prohibitions.
Okay.
You have to keep that into account.
But back of envelope, this could be 10, 40,000 if you even get half of them, 20,000 spots easily.
Yes.
Wow. Well, assuming that they are used, and there is, frankly, at the end of the day, a strong equity argument to be made for this. Would the department agree with that?
You would be putting all streets on the same playing field. All streets would be the same, yes.
To implement this, so the last question is around implementation through you, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair. I imagine that this is a pretty big piece of work to actually go out and do that. Do you have any ballpark, back of envelope? I think there's a motion going to be coming on how much work this is, but just back of envelope, is it 2 years of work for one person?
Actually, in the report that was submitted, we basically identified a 5-year phase-in period that would involve additional resources, and the additional resources would be inspection staff to actually measure the streets, to calculate the number of parking spaces, to do off-street parking surveys to identify what parking exists on private property.
Right.
There's data entry to be done.
That's one-time cost. A lot of that is one-time stuff.
There's an administrative process that is very time-consuming, as well as all the notifications that would need to be mailed out to the affected streets and residents of those streets.
Okay. It could, well, this is the only time I've spoken.
You ask as many questions as you
Thank you, and I will. This could be a capital project. Is that not correct?
No, I think the permit parking program is under the operating budget, so it's not a capital program.
It's more than 50,000 and it's permanent infrastructure.
It's permanent infrastructure, more than 50,000 is my wise.
Yeah, we could look into it, but I'm not sure it's considered to be infrastructure.
Could be.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Councillor Davis?
Councillor Mihevc asked my question, so I'll just move my motion. It's the same motion. I moved.
Are there any other questions of staff?
Save.
Questions to staff right now?
I moved it last month.
Can you
but
hold
no
on?
one
Can you?
was prepared to listen last month, so I will speak even slower than I normally do to explain the motion. Yes.
I just want to make sure that, we're all here trying to keep a process in order, and I think that in the House of Government, we want to be respectful of one another. Everything that we do here is being broadcast through the building, and I want to just make sure that we take our task very seriously.
Yes.
Which means that we try not to overspeak when others are speaking. We try to respect those who are before us. There's oftentimes a lot of chatter. I don't generally speak like this. I'm sure you folks know that, but it is very difficult while you're having private conversations across the floor for us to keep order here. So I'll just go through the procedures. Are there any other members who have questions of staff? Seeing none. Speakers. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. This motion I moved last month. So in light of what we heard about the implementation costs and timelines for phase-in, what this requests is that the Director of Transportation Services reports back again in September with the list of streets that do not have permit parking but could accommodate on-street parking. There are many streets that there's no parking, no stopping, etc., where we would not be able to have on-street parking. A proposed consultation and an implementation plan, so that would be how long it would take to actually install signs and phase it in over whatever period of time. You've spoken about a 5-year plan, but it may be another plan that would work. And then a more detailed costing and staffing implication implications that would have to go into the 2018 budget. And that the proposed bylaw amendments that do not require polling and petitions. Right, what the proposed bylaw would be. And I think we have an example already that Councillor McMahon used, and maybe you would just expand on the process. That's the intent of this. What would the process be? And it would be to exempt, or you would amend the bylaw completely for this district. I don't know. The way that Councillor McMahon did it was she exempted those streets from the bylaw, and then that went to council, and then she added the permit parking in a 2-phased process. I don't know if that's the only way to do it, but that's the intent of D, is to have you come back with the legislative steps that would be required. I'm certainly open to any date changes or any other suggestions. I think I spoke with you about this last month. And so what it does is it gives us an ability to understand the costs and the implementation and to move ahead. I know it can't be done in the blink of an eye because there are staffing and cost implications. But just to go back to the equity question and return to the substantive question, we continue to, we're speaking. Every time we have an application for a front yard parking pad, if there is no permit parking in the neighborhood, then they meet the requirement that there is no alternative available in most instances. So what that does is it creates more pressure for front yard parking pads, and there's a predominant feeling around this table most of the time, depending on who's here, that parking pads really are not good for a variety of reasons, environmentally predominantly, and that we should be using the hard surface that exists for the parking that is required in a dense urban environment. The other thing is that, now, if you look at the ward profiles that are in the graph, I probably have the most unpermitted streets, along with 22 and 21, I guess, as the three wards that still have a lot of streets without permit parking. And, you know, while it may be contentious, I think it really is a question of equity. On every one of those streets in my ward, I can go around at night and I could see people parking on the street overnight. They know it. They don't complain. They have a pact of silence, and they don't get ticketed. There may be a blip once in a while if someone's mad at someone else, and then you get a round of tickets. But for the most part, it is just not fair that half the residents in those wards are parking free of charge overnight. And they have no real incentive to proceed with front yard, or not front yard, with on-street permit parking when they can do it anyway without consequence most of the time. So I just think this is fair. You don't have to have a permit. I mean, and that's the piece I think when I explain to people, it doesn't mean you must have a permit. It just authorizes it for the neighborhood. And in many of those communities, if they just parked in their driveway or cleaned out half the garage, they could accommodate their cars on their private property and wouldn't have to park on the street if they didn't want to. So I want to see what the implications would be. I think it will be contentious, and I know that my colleague should probably hand in his amendment to mine so that it's done. He's going to, this is asking for a consultation process too. I mean, we don't want a citywide, obviously, consultation plan, and council, are you looking at the time? And Councillor Hevick has an alternative proposal. But I do think it is a significant change that wouldn't require polling and petitions, and we should hear from the public and explain what we're doing in an open and transparent way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any questions of the mover? Okay. Members to speak still, Councillor Mahevic, then McMahon, then Matlow. Oh, you do? Sorry. Councillor McMahon, questions?
I don't know what it would look like. I think I'd just like staff to turn their minds to it. It could be one consultation meeting in an evening. It could be, you know, one day, one evening, an open house. You know, Yeah, something like that. And then people clearly could come here to speak in the end. As far as an implementation plan, I think we need to know how long it would take to roll out and whether or not there could be some implementation in 2018. Well, I guess we really just need to, what this report says is it's going to cost money to do it, and that we're going to need staffing for it. Yeah, and so I think we need consultation and we need a budget ask to do it.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other questions for the mover? Seeing none. Councillor Mihevc?
Based on the answers that she gave around the proposed consultation, for me, like, I have no difficulty with this. Like, I think the time has come.
Councillor Mihevc, if I can just ask you to hold on to your thought. I know that Ellen is fiercely typing up your motion. It's not ready yet. We want to make sure you have a chance to move your motion before you speak. What I'm going to do is see if I can get Councillor Matlow to speak first, and then we'll come right back to you. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor.
Well, obviously, I'm at a disadvantage by not seeing Councillor Mihevc's motion. I'm actually intrigued now, but I look forward to seeing it in a moment. I'm not convinced that we need to do anything other than receive this information. This may surprise Councillor Davis, but I just see this as an unnecessary opening of a can of worms. We already have street-by-street discussions and debates, and sometimes easier and sometimes harder. But to sort of just generally kind of do an open house and just sort of go, hey, what do you think? I don't know if that really will end up resolving in our minds what we want to do street by street anyways. The other issue is that I think that the submission, why I recognize the argument that there's an inequitable system today, I respectfully disagree. Meaning that it may not be equal, but it's equitable. It's streets that have chosen, residents that have chosen to have permit parking have made that choice. Every street has the option to do so, and some have chosen not to. Streets can choose to relinquish having permit parking if they choose to. I know residents on some streets that have actually cherished the similar scenario that Councillor Davis referred to earlier about sort of this like, this free parking that they have and they only get caught once in a while. Then all of a sudden they get a bunch of tickets over and over again, or there's one person on the street who's always calling the cops, and all of a sudden they actually plead to have permit parking just to resolve that. They'd rather actually kind of know that they pay one set fee and not have to deal with the concern about the police showing up and surprising them. So it is what it is today, and it's not perfect, it's highly imperfect, but I don't know by just kind of mandating that everybody must have it at the end of the day is the answer as well. And I don't know if simply just doing what is being proposed today is really going to resolve in our minds what we'd like to do at the end of the day, street by street, actively listening to those streets' needs.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Mihevc, we're ready for you now.
Yes, thank you. Well, I support Councillor Davis's motion. My only fear had been, but then when she spoke, she kind of relieved it, a proposed consultation strategy. Like that could be all from, meetings in everyone's ward and an online thing, and I just thought that was going to just make us all crazy. Like one meeting, fine. I can handle one meeting, get the feedback, maybe start it with an open house beforehand, and so for people who don't want to sit through a whole meeting if they need further understanding. But do the meeting once the report is prepared in the fall. I think by the fall you'll have the basic stuff together. Have the meeting, and then let's make a decision. We could go into an endless spiral of consultation that will frankly drag us back, and I don't think that's her intent. So that, I think, is really focuses it. One meeting, one consultation, pull it together, and let's make a decision. Having said that, I want to throw a little bit of a wrench into this. We are about to, and it might not be for this coming election, it might be for the next election, we are changing boundaries. Guess what? that's going to actually push also changes in the lines where there are community councils. Maybe not for some of you, but certainly for me, I have a section north of Eglinton that I suspect is going to go to North York Community Council, and I'm going to get a section of what is now in Etobicoke York Community Council and in North York Community Council. So there's going to have to be some fancy footwork done a little later on when we get those reports back on what the community councils look like. So, but I don't think that's a reason to stop. I'm just pointing that out for your information. So, but I think at the end of the day, these streets belong to us all. They do not belong, and even in a special way, to the residents on that street. They belong to us all, and all of us should be able to park on those streets, provided we've paid the appropriate fees and park in the appropriate spots. And I also think from an administrative perspective, the amount of work that we expect our residents and our staff to go through when we do on-street permit parking, street by street, like that is long-term drip pain. And to be able to do it in one fell swoop, frankly, and if we do it, maybe the other community councils will do it. It's the right. I think it's frankly the right thing to do.
I don't think they'll do it.
They always look to us for leadership.
Okay, hang tight. We've got questions of the mover, Councillor McMahon.
I believe in history.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Mihevik, so would you not think that the regular statutory meeting here at TYCC would suffice, or is this in addition to that, or is this, so you're doing two?
No, it would be one. This is the one item that would be on that agenda.
Okay,
And
so
I
then they
would see
would not come, that's the statutory meeting,
As a statutory,
but it's just that item.
just that item, because, you know what, at the end of the day, this is not a small decision, it's a pretty
I
big
know.
decision.
I know,
And so we should let our residents know, look, this is,
preaching to the choir.
we should think about this, we should have the meeting, there should be a staff presentation on what it would look like and why we would do it. There might be an open house beforehand, but it's one evening, let's not make this into a mega project, but let's consult.
Councillor Fletcher, is that your hand going up? Nope. Any others who would like to speak to this item? Yeah, Councillor Fletcher.
I'm going to speak to it. I'm sorry, I said I was dealing with something. I'm just back. But I'm not sure that we actually had potential revenue also identified here as far as it being able to pay for many of the different things that we're looking at. But on this bigger motion, but
I don't want it to be seen as a cash grab.
Can we just let Councillor Fletcher finish her remarks?
Thank you. So I don't want a big, Councillor McMahon brought her motion forward. People knew about it. We got a few letters. Some people called, and then she moved her next motion. I don't see why we should do anything that much different than what we've established now as this process that you've set up. We do have a meeting. It's our Toronto and East York. Anyone could have come today, done that today, and they didn't come. So I'm not prepared to have a special meeting. I'll have a special meeting on casinos, but whether or not the city can use its own streets to park, I don't wish to do that. I don't think that's worth it. So I'm not going to support Councillor Mihevik's motion here today.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other speakers? Can you speak again? Yes, why not? I don't want to take away your voice. Go ahead.
For those of us where this is a significant change, there will need to be good communication and an opportunity to speak. I cannot imagine that we could simply put it on agenda with another 100 items and expect, one, that it will be a meeting that will be able to be concluded in one day, and secondly, that it would be fair to everyone else unless it were scheduled for the evening, and that was, you know, one day of community council and then an extension into the evening. I don't think we need to lock ourselves in, which is why I thought a discussion on consultation at the next meeting would be appropriate. But I'm happy. I thought this was going to be 2 meetings. One would be a special meeting and then a meeting that is our regular council, community council meeting. So that's what I would prefer, one separate consultation meeting and then community council. That's what I'd prefer.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. I think Councillor Fletcher would like to speak again.
Good.
Yes, and I know there's big changes, and I think many of us have big changes in our ward. Councillor McMahon and I have 22 acres worth of barns, and there was no special meeting on that. There were community meetings on that. I also have the relief line and which direction. There was no special meeting on that. There was a community meeting on that. There's a good, Cluster B has its own folks that do public consultation, and I think that's worthwhile having the consultations in those wards. I'm sure they would support it. So I've not been convinced by that argument.
Thank you very much. Are there any others who would like to speak? Okay. Councillor McMahon.
Well, I just want to say, so don't be afraid. I did it, and I've lived through it thus far. It's a great idea for many reasons, and I don't think it's fair for people to, some people to pay to park on city property and some people not to. It's the same as with the illegal parking pads, which we'll get into at another point in time. So with regard to Councillor Matlow, I would say that I bet a lot of your residents don't realize, but a lot of our residents don't realize that some people pay and some people do not. So I don't think that's fair, and I think it's a lost revenue source. So that's why I did it. But I would say, encourage you, the communication that I did, because again, we don't always consult on everything. I think sometimes we over-consult because it's misleading and people think that they have a say, and you really don't. So you're just consulting, I don't know why, because it frustrates them even more. So I sent out information in my electronic newsletter that goes out to 10,000 people, whether they read it or not. But obviously they did. We also put it on social media, and I'm always available by phone calls. But actually people were really surprised to find out other people weren't paying. So, and some of mine were historically, they were subdivisions that were put in and it wasn't done at the time. So it's just, it's equitable, it's a lost revenue, why not capture that? And it is a city property. So I think if you explain it that way, people will understand. Good luck. Thank you.
Great. Are there any, thank you very much, Councillor McMahon. Any other members who are interested in speaking? Because I think we may be ready to take a vote.
Want to make one comment, if I could?
Hang on. So I see Councillor Davis. Your hand is going up again. I'm going to just ask you to hang on tight. Councillor Cressy has not spoken yet. Are there any members who have not spoken who would like to speak at this point, besides Councillor Cressy? Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Very briefly, it'll take 20 seconds. I think Councillor Davis's motion is the right direction to go, and I'll be supporting it. And I think that Councillor Mihevic's motion will help to clarify and simplify the process by virtue of having one meeting, not a gazillion. And for that reason, I'll be supporting both.
That's fine.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fragedakis.
I will be supporting Councillor Mihevic's motion as well, because I think that there's nothing wrong with a consultation. It's democracy. It takes a little longer. I'm sorry that we can't do this business in one meeting at Toronto and East York Community Council, where we have a lot of rezoning applications and other business to conduct, like fences and front yard parking pads. But I think this issue is important enough that it actually warrants its own meeting for that kind of discussion. And while I appreciate that some members of this community council represent areas where their percentage percentages are 90% have permit parking on their side streets. Some of us represent neighborhoods where the majority of our streets are not permitted, and that's a historical fact, and that isn't something that you can just say to people, well, try it and see if you like it, because that's not what they're used to. So I'm just interested in having a conversation with the public to hear what they have to say, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Davis, simply because we're here and I recognize this issue is very important to you, is it to clarify your motion? Are you changing your
I
motion?
assume that they're not mutually exclusive, mine and Joe's, and that a report will come back, and at that time, there would be a special meeting and some kind of consultation around it, as Joe has suggested. There could be.
Okay. If you know what I'm going to suggest, and I recognize that there's a desire to have a free-flowing conversation. I'm going to propose that we take a 5-minute recess right now. I'm going to ask everybody who needs to huddle into a corner to actually find a resolution amongst yourselves, and we're going to come right back at exactly 4:13.
Chair, there's.
Yes. Is that
The other
okay?
thing I wanted to clarify, I clarified it last time and I want it corrected for the record.
Okay.
That this report says this request was received from Councillor Janet Davis. It actually was a motion of Community Council to request this report.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you for that.
For the
point of-
record?
Thank you for that point of clarification. We're going to come back at 4:15, okay? We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Let's get down to work. Okay. Thank you.
No, once the plan is put together, how many spots, what streets, all that.
Janet wrote them in, hers, yours in there, an option for a special meeting.
Sure, that's fine.
Perhaps what it could be is a subcommittee that actually hears that special meeting. So, which we did with. So,
I'm okay.
so I
Who's in the office? Needs to be there.
I think when we did the casino, there was a subcommittee that.
Yeah, but you know what? Then they'll know. We can always do that later because we're not having a big meeting at the same time as we get there. So we can delegate that.
We have this one and then the bills.
Perfect.
That's it. Do I have time? What? Not right now. Or can you do it? Yeah, I have to go and speak to. Many of these streets, many of these streets, Vice Chair, may I'm just going to run, that's not impacting timing, then why is it in the spot?
No.
If it is impacting timing, we need to be straight with us and tell us that. Anyway, I'm out of here in like 15 minutes.
And who's 31?
Janet.
Why is Janet got so much? I said, great, go on the street. Don't these front yard parking fights stop? Right.
We've already dealt with that. That's better.
You know, just thinking, you know, another thing it does is it's written.
I can
10%, 50%, 60%, 80% front yard parking debates.
I know, I know. That's why they all come here.
She asked not to start without her.
Without Ellen? Of course, yeah.
They amended the motion, Councillor Mahalik is withdrawing his motion.
And they amended.
Let's just change that.
Part B.
I'm moving it. Yes, I'm moving it. I'm moving this. I'm moving it.
You're moving it?
There's been four blocks downtown Ottawa have been evacuated due to a gas leak.
Really? What happened to the,
That's downtown.
that was Ottawa, because our hydro vault blew up.
We're waiting for the clerk to finish their consultation.
Chair, it's finished, and
We're just going to hang on because they're consulting and they want to make sure that everything is procedurally before us.
just wanted to make sure that I got you.
I think we're ready to go. I want to thank everyone for your patience. I appreciate that there was a lot of work when we went into recess, and certainly having senior clerk staff pulled in to make sure that we are all going to be procedurally in order when motions are moved. I'm going to, I know that Councillor Davis, hang on, okay. There's two motions. There are at least two motions before us, one from Councillor Davis, Councillor Mahalik. I know that Councillor Fletcher has now indicated that she'll be moving a motion. Before Councillor Fletcher speaks, does Councillor Davis or Councillor Mahalik need to do anything with their motions beforehand?
We are both withdrawing our motions.
Okay.
And Paula Fletcher is going, Councillor Fletcher is going to move the amended motion that combines the concepts of both of our two motions.
Okay, so Councillor Davis has a motion to withdraw her motion. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? Seeing none, that's been moved, that's been adopted. Councillor Mihevc, you can move to withdraw your motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That has been withdrawn. Councillor Fletcher, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to move the following motion that you can see, which includes a proposed consultation plan, including the option of a special meeting of Toronto East York Community Council, which captures what Councillor Mihevc was doing. Other than that, it's essentially exactly the same. I'm moving it on behalf of my colleagues.
Any questions of the mover? No? Okay. All those in favor? Sure. Record a vote. All those in favor indicate your support. Councillor Davis, there's a request for a recorded vote. Can you please indicate your support for the motion? Yep. Councillor Davis, Councillor Mihevc, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Fajidakis, Councillor Layton, Councillor Perks, Councillor McMahon. All those opposed? Oh, Councillor McConnell, yes, sorry. Those opposed? Councillor Matlow. That has been approved. Okay, that brings us to the end of our item. What is next?
Oh, the bills.
The bills. Who's got the bills? Give one to Councillor Cressy. His calendar was light.
That the Toronto and East York Community Council pass and declare as bylaws Bills 523 to 533, 536 to 537, and 539 to 551, prepared for the May 2nd, 2017 meeting 24th Community Council.
Great. And Councillor Fajidakis?
And that the Toronto and East York.
Yeah, so all those in favor of Councillor Cressy's reading of the bills? Any opposed? Seeing none, go ahead. Councillor
That the Toronto and East York Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceeding of the Toronto and East York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 24 on May 2nd, 2017.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you. Then that brings our meeting to a close. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you to our wonderful clerk. No, actually, we're going to do this again in June. Have a great evening and great afternoon. Thanks, folks. What's wrong with them?
420, perfect.
You know what? It's coming right.